Good morning, everyone. Today is the 10th day of Menachem Av, and it's a beautiful day outside. We're on page 67 in Chayenu, and in today's lesson, I think we're going to address the question that since the love that emanates from the divine spark found within the soul of all Jews, why not everyone? Why is everyone not able to attain this level of divine service? It's a good question. So in today's lesson, oftentimes we're not capable of appreciating a divine connection because of a personal inner flaw. Okay, so our divine spark is covered with this foreskin of personal pleasure, which comes in two levels. One, concealment, more subtle than the other, not allowing it to connect with its divine source. Remember, the outer level of love we could all reach because we could think about it. But the inner level, it's this burning fire. Why can't we all reach that level? So the reason why not everybody merits this rank in the service of Hashem, of the heart, service from the depths of the heart, in the state of pnimius, the live of b'chinas pnimius, hainu lefisha b'chinas zoi, the etzer b'chinas golus v'shivya. That's because that spark is being held in golus, in exile, and it's being schlepped down. Remember a few weeks ago or last week we spoke about when you do an Avera, you schlep Hashem down with you because you're attached with this Yaakov Cheva Nachlosi, this Jacob's rope that you're attached to Hashem with. So when you do a sin, you drag it along with it. So we're deep in Golus. The neshama is dragged down into the dark place. And this is actually the state of exile of the Shechina. For it is precisely the Shechina, which is the spark of divinity that is in one's divine soul. So when the spark, this spark, which is a part of Hashem, is in Golus, the Shekhinah is in Golus as well. Moreover, being in exile, being in Golus, the spark cannot arouse the soul to serve Hashem with the loftier manner of love that stems from the innermost depths of the heart. That love which is higher than intellectual understanding, or at least, thinking. When we think about the greatness of Hashem, that's one level of love. And the second part is hard to reach when our neshama is so far dragged down into the dark Golus. The cause of the exile of the Golus, of the divine spark, is, as the sages say, when the Jewish people were exiled to Bavel, the Shekhinah went with them. So in terms of the individual sparks of the soul, this means that when a spark is in a state of Bavel, meaning when an individual acts in a Bavel-like state, then the Shekhinah is with him, meaning when he sins. The Shekhinah gets dragged into that dark place with him. This is because he has vested the innermost point of his heart in that aspect of the universe which is the opposing counterpart to holiness. Which is what? Namely, the Hainu b'levushim tsoyim, the mili d'alma, saivas olam hazeh, hanikra b'shem bavel. So what is it? These soiled garments, mundane matters and worldly desires, all the taivas that we lust for and we run after and we fall into a trap and we indulge in, which are known as Bavel, Babylon, is thereby banished the divine spark within his soul, the personal Shekhinah, that spark of Hashem within him, so to speak, to this all-pervasive Bavel. V'hi b'chinas arla hamachasa ala bris v'nekuda hapnimish shebelev. This exile corresponds to the foreskin that covers the covenant and the innermost point of the heart. Al zed namar, over here, and on this it says, "Umaltem eis arla slavavchem." You shall cut off the foreskin of your heart. Or to say that, it says that in the Chumash, in the Torah itself. In principle, the spiritual service of circumcision is that of tshuva. That's how we remove that layer of the heart. With regard to exile, our sages said if Israel does tshuva, they will be immediately redeemed. So tshuva leads to the Geula. That's on a personal level. And what does it do? It brings and it allows that spark that's in Golos to now be redeemed. In the spiritual terms, the act of circumcision likewise removes a veil of concealment and allows the innermost point of the heart to be revealed. Milo priya. In circumcision, there are two stages: mila, the cutting itself, and priya, uncovering. Shein orla gasa v'klipa daka, which remove respectively the coarse foreskin and the thin membrane. When it comes to the heart, there's also two levels. There's the coarse desires and the subtle desires. There's simple things like, oh, I'm going to have another bite even though I'm full. And then there's lustful things that make a person do the worst of sins. Umilu priya, these two grades of worldly desires require both these acts of a bris. If a person does only one of them, when it comes to a bris, it's as if there was no bris itself. So just as this is the law with regard to actual bris, so too, when it comes to the heart, if a person removes only the coarse desire and not the more subtle ones, or vice versa, so it's as if this act wasn't done. Because after all said and done, the innermost point of the heart is still covered by a garment of thin sackcloth of klipa. You could say, oh, I'll never eat chazer, but if I say a few words of lashon hara, whatever, big deal. So what happens? That inner part of the heart, bechinas galus v'shivya, is still in a state of exile and captivity, and will remain there until we go ahead and do the full circumcision of the heart. Concerning the cutting of the foreskin itself, it says that, and you yourself shall cut the foreskin of your heart. What does that mean? That each and every yid is able to remove this himself. For tshuva tears down that veil with which his desires obscure the innermost point of his heart. You have the ability to stop sinning and to do tshuva for what you've done. However, the removal of the thin membrane, the simple things, the big things, we're not going to bow down to idols. We're not going to eat, chazer, but the little things that we fall into the Yetzer Hara's trap, those are the things that are much harder to remove, obviously. Of over this, with the coming of Mashiach, it says that Hashem will circumcise your heart. To love Hashem with all your heart and all your soul for the sake of your life. Because God alone is literally your whole life. So in this state, the individual's love of Hashem will not be merely a manifestation of his neshama, but a love that constitutes his very life. The person's not going to think of it as like something I do, but it's something I am. This is who I am. I'm a lover of Hashem. So just as a person does not regard his life as being something a part of him, you don't think, oh, if I breathe, it's just something I do. No, it's mamish a part of me. My heartbeat, my mind. So to the love of Hashem is mamish a part of you. So that's why this love comes from the depths of his heart. It's even higher than the level of love that comes through knowledge. Therefore, too, Mashiach will come when Israel, in general, are caught unaware. Just like you fan the flame, suddenly you thought the fire was out. And the next day after the barbecue, and you take a little piece of paper, you fan the flames, and suddenly, boom, it jumps back up. So too, when it comes to the innermost love of a Jew that's within each and every yid, just has to be fanned. And the emergence of the universal Shekhinah of the entire community of Israel from Golos from exile and captivity forevermore will be redeemed, just as each individual's Jewish a divine spark, his personal Shekhinah, so to speak, is redeemed from captivity. through means that transcend reason and understanding. In such a manner too, will the universal Shekhinah, and with it the entire Knesset Yisrael, be redeemed. So thus the ultimate circumcision of the heart is in the wake of the ultimate manifestation of love of Hashem. And this will take place when Mashiach comes. Nevertheless, that's why it's not necessarily within the capability of every person to do. You could think the love of Hashem, but to suddenly become all moved by the love of Hashem from the depths of our heart, that's something that might not happen to everyone, but it will happen when Mashiach comes. And we should still try to liberate one's personal Shekhinah, one's divine spark, at least on a temporary basis during davening, as the Alter Rebbe now goes on to say. Similarly, every particular spark of Shekhinah, which is in the neshama of every single yid, during davening, when you're saying Shema Leinu, our neshama feels it and might jump out of its galus. This soul that's in galus within the body can jump out during the davening, during special times. And you can reach the state of, for the sake of your life, for the individual senses that Hashem is our entire lives. During the day, you might be distracted with other things. Maybe even if you're trying to do a mitzvah to bring it out, it's one thing the Alter Rebbe says during davening. That's when you're trying to really focus with your relationship with Hashem, and that's when the deeper love that was dragged down into this dark galus could be redeemed. And in this too, in this momentary deliverance, this momentary release from the galus of the innermost point of the heart during davening, a man may be considered to be in a state of Hesach Hadas, unaware, absent-minded. His mind is wandering. So it's not the mind, it's the passion, it's the deep connection to Hashem. We already said that this state of the inner love is not because of the das of a person and his meditation on God's greatness. Rather, it's a gift of God that Hashem gives you from heaven. From the radiance of the supernal countenance, as the Pasuk says, may Hashem make his countenance shine upon you. When that happens, the innermost love of a person just jumps forth. It doesn't come about by any deep contemplation. As it's written, and Hashem will circumcise, remove the insensitivity of your heart. And this is a state which exists even now on a temporary basis, specifically during davening. So the takeaway is Mashiach will come. The sages declare when we are not cognitive, it's not going to come about through our deep thinking and through our efforts, but rather Hashem is going to help us get out of this galus on a personal level and also on a collective, universal level. But on a personal level, we do this during the davening in a way that transcends our usual conscious self. Okay, Chavra, have a good day.